Howdy, it's tubalcain again. And in this two-part video, I'm going to discuss irregular parting lines and parting down with a spoon and using a follow block, making a follower block, and then using it. So there'll be two different ways of doing this. Now, recently at a garage sale, I've picked up these two bottle openers, 25 cents each. They were brand new, are brand new for that matter. But you can see how irregular they are. And then while I was sitting in the car waiting for my wife to picking through the rag, she takes a lot longer at a garage sale than I started examining this, and I thought this would be a good subject for a video. And for those of you that are interested in foundry work of various kinds, and I have a bunch of videos on that, so you can go back and look at those. And several were on irregular parting lines, but some of those are also in my foundry series that I sell, my course. But this is for free. So what is an irregular parting line? You've seen me make a lot of castings, and the simplest type of casting or pattern to make, you need a pattern first, is of course a simple flat back like these. So it's just a one-piece pattern, and the back of it is flat, and we just lay it on the board and we pack sand around it. It's just as simple as can be. These are so easy to make, and I have scores of these left from my little engines and my other projects. And then when we get a little more complex, we have a split pattern. And by the way, this half is when you cast it up, is just in one half of the foundry flash. That is, it's either in the cope or the drag. But with the split pattern, a little more complex, half of it is in the cope and half is in the drag. And you've seen me do this. You've seen me make the patterns even and turn them on the lathe. Simple stuff. That's the parting line. And when we open it up, that's the parting plane. So to make matters a little more difficult here, first of all, I'm taking a casting and I'm going to use the casting as the pattern. Now, in the foundry where they made these, and this is the Star Company, and they still make a lot of these, and some of them were embossed or cast with Pepsi-Cola on there or Coca-Cola. You've seen these. It's iconic, really, is what it is. And these are iron. These are cast iron. I'm going to make an aluminum one, which is questionable as to whether it's worthwhile, but I'm just showing you things here. We don't care about the fact that it's functional, and furthermore, 98% of all bottles are twist-offs now anyway, so these are a thing of the past. But, as I said, I'm using a casting for a pattern. Now that makes things a little more difficult because it's rough. Now these have probably been tumbled or in a vibratory type of media to clean them up, but there'll be some undercuts. For instance, on this one, you can see that's probably where the gate was, and they would have cast perhaps dozens of these on one board called a match plate, and you've seen me make match plates also. So they don't make one at a time, but I'm going to make one at a time. You will see all kinds of castings that have irregular parting lines, and some of them are die cast, and as a matter of fact, probably most complex patterns are this matter. But just this little part right here in the front where the hole is more or less a flat back. But then it immediately goes into an irregular parting line here so that there aren't any cores needed in making this. Sometimes cores are needed, and I don't even want to talk about that. I think you know what they are. I've shown that too. But going from the flat part here, I'm using this green marker, and then up here, perhaps you can see that parting line. And then, now why am I showing you this? Because you need to know where this is if you're going to part down to the parting line or make a follower block. And then it continues along here and then transitions again back into flat back or on the parting plane. Same thing on the other side. Now in here, this is what makes it a little more complex. And aluminum probably won't do here because this would break off, but we have a parting line here as well. If this is too boring for you, skip up. But don't give me a negative right away. Some people are giving me a negative a thumbs down within seconds. In other words, they're just going in and thumbing down. They're not even watching it. Just trolls, losers. So that's the parting line in here. Did you follow that? Is it clear as mud? On these castings you can see numbers. So this would be pattern number 11 and this is 23. So perhaps there were 24 of these, or there might have been more than one match plate. Who knows? But the reason they number these is if they have problems when they're examining the first batch that come out there and they see something wrong here, they'd say, oh, that's number 11. So they'd go in and correct number 11. That's the reason for that. And then, of course, the trademark is here. And this company is alive and well and has a website. Check it out. Matter of fact, there it is, .com. These are not antiques, but this style has been made forever. They were on the wall of every motel near the bathroom. They were on every pop machine, every vending machine, and you know, they just probably made hundreds of millions of these. See this ugly conglomeration of clay? This is the follow block, and that will be the subject of the companion video. So I'm not going to do that in this video, but come back if you're interested in that and see how I make this. But I'm going to finish out this video by going out into my foundry and using this one with the X. I found that it had fewer undercuts than this, and it also depends on how they clean these up when they're snagging them. Do they grind into them a little bit? But this seems to be the better one. I'm going to take this out and ram it up. I won't pour it in this video, but I'm going to show you how I part it down using a spoon. You have seen me do this before, but I've noticed that people don't go back and watch those real old videos. So some of this stuff I should rerun the videos and call them repeats, pun intended. But this is interesting stuff, even if you don't care two hoots about foundry. After all, it is founding, it is metalworking. So I'll meet you out in my garage foundry presently. Here's one that's still on the foundry bench. I'm outside in the foundry area now. This was left from the rehearsal. Yes, I do rehearse. Just like any good musician. Still has to rehearse, you know. But there you can see it. The cope and the drag. Well, you're going to see another one here in a second, so I won't belabor this point. I'm going to knock these out and start over. Okay, you can see what I got set up here, and it's not my intention to show all the details of molding because that's been shown in so many other videos, both by myself and others. But you've seen me part down before when I made this match plate, so be sure and watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. So there you can see the purpose perhaps of parting down, and that was done with a spoon. Alright, let's get on with this now. So I'll put a little parting dust in there, parting compound. I noticed that Myford man over in England just uses baby powder, so I guess that works fine. I really don't know. Now let me show you something there. This is kind of comical, but when I was up to sea in a recent video, a field trip to a Luma tank, Terry Kirkpatrick gave me this, and it's a flour sifter. So this is its inaugural run. I didn't think it would work. I thought it would clog instantly, but it's quite effective as a riddle. You all remember this from your grandmother or your mother. Quite effective, rather than using just a simple riddle like this. Okay, now I'm going to fill it with rough sand. This is Petrobond sand, and proceed to ram it. And now I will strike it off. I'm using as small of a flask as I can simply to make the job easier. Now I'll flip it over. This is the part that may not make sense, but now I'm going to take a molding spoon and I'm going to part it down to the parting line, irregular parting line, parting plane. And this is all waste sand in here, and you can also see that it's not packed very tight. Now some of this is bagasse and bagache, but from studying this and showing it down in the basement with a green Sharpie, I know about how I want to part it. You see it's starting to be exposed, but I had to go get my optivisor and a flashlight because it's a bit tedious, so my head's going to be in the way and I got to do this close up, so you're not going to be able to see that. Now I've got about a dozen spoons here, but they're all about the same size, so I've resorted to using a 6-inch scale to get in there and parting it back carefully so I don't ruin it and have to start over again. I believe I'm down to the parting line. This is not an exact science. As a matter of fact, there's not a science at all. It's a art, I guess. Then I take my finger and gently smooth it. And I expect a little bit of fallout when I lift the other half out. That's just a given. Right in here is where I will put the sprue. And then a little gate in there. And this is a rather thin casting, so it's hopeful that this will fill the void and not be a short run like, if I can find it. Here's a cold shut on this little fry pan. So sometimes if the metal isn't up to temperature, it solidifies before it fills the mold cavity. So that's what I'm worried about. So this is one I will pour extra hot and hope that it turns out. So now a little parting sand on that. And hope there's no undercuts, and I'm going to ram the cope. This is the drag. The bottom half is the drag. It drags on the ground. Sift a little flour. Thank you, Terry. Be sure and watch that video where I take a trip with my friend Dwight to a Luma tank. And the Kirkpatricks show us through the plant. It's pretty awesome. A lot of laser cutting and TIG welding going on. I need to pack this extra hard in this area because of where it goes extra deep into the pattern. Got a ladybug. And find my sprue cutter here. That's about where I want to cut. I hope I don't hit the pattern. I know I went in deep enough because there's some parting sand. And I'll clean this up a little bit here with my spoon if I can find it. I'm a little disorganized today. Haven't done any molding for quite a while. Matter of fact, this is the first mold this year, I believe. Alright, now it's ready to take apart. I like to tap the flask a little bit to possibly loosen the pattern. They usually use a vibrator in a big foundry, and then it withdrew quite nicely. I'm a happy camper, and now let me cut the gate. Make sure it's good and deep so that metal can flow. You know, aluminum isn't nearly as liquid when it's molten as cast iron, and that's just my own observation. Now, if you will, let's get a close-up of that. Remember, you saw it here first, like it matters. Parting down, a bottle opener, and then here's the cope. You see the parting line? And possibly understand what I did. Now I'm ready to close it up. Take a good look. Again, this is Petrobond sand. I'll blow it off real well and put it back together. And of course, before I close it up, I have to remove the pattern. I remember at school sometimes the kids would leave the pattern in. If it was a wood one, it ruined the pattern. Then they would wonder why not much metal went into the mold. There's no good way to grab hold of the pattern, so I cut just a little bit of sand out there, and I just got to put my fingers in there and try to lift it straight up. Wiggle it just a little bit. Now I expect some sand to fall in. It always happens, and that can be cleaned up later on. Okay, I think a little more fell in there than what I like. It'll require filing. My pyrometer reads 1388 degrees, so I believe it's ready to pour. I was shooting for around 1400, and well, about 15 minutes have elapsed. So let's open her up and see what we got. Well, the mold filled up, all right. That, of course, is the extra little hole I dug for my fingers. Now, this is where it fell in just a little bit, but that'll clean up so easily, and that means either the sand didn't get packed quite hard enough down there, or I wasn't quite on the parting line. A little bit here too, that'll all file out. Now what you see, I gotta cool this and we'll take it down the basement. What you see right here in the way of pits, that's a little bit of sand that fell down into the mold or washed into the mold or whatever, and formed a cavity. But overall, I think the casting's all right. Let's go down the basement where I will cut this off in the bandsaw, and then we'll examine it as it's cool. This is a rather thin and delicate casting, so it's you got to hold it carefully, and just a few minutes with needle files and getting into this throat here, which is a little bit, not a little bit, very awkward filing. So I'll do that tedious work off camera. It just dawned on me, I think I'll try a rotary file, and this is probably the first time you've ever seen me use the Dremel this way, and if this isn't successful, it'll certainly be the last. Not bad. As you can see, I'm using both abrasive belts, the wide and the narrow, to get into some of the intricate parts. Or it could be filed, doesn't have to be sanded. This is the original. And this is the one that I parted down, and you can see that with a little cleanup it really turned out nice, except for those pits right there. Now remember that in the foundry they would vibrate these or with the media, and it would make them homogeneous looking. That is, you wouldn't see any filing marks or saw marks or any imperfections like that. Also a point here that no doubt the Star Company has well, I don't think you can patent this, but there would be certain rights. There's probably a copyright on it and all of that. And I am not breaking into those because I'm only making one of these, and then I'll probably melt it down. But you certainly can't copy this, make them, and sell them. You would be in violation of the law. But the purpose of this is instructional, just to show you how to deal with irregular parting lines. So that's how you do it with the parted down method, that is using a spoon. Okay, in the next video, the companion video, I'm going to make a follow block. It looks something like this. Matter of fact, it looks exactly like this. This looks like a dental appliance or something, doesn't it? I hope my buddy Ted is watching this. I should have been a dentist. So we'll talk about that in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this, and stay with me and watch my almost 900 other videos. And I did draw a little blood. I don't even know what I did there. Sorry about that. This is tubalcain saying so long for now.